we'll kick things off. So as I say, I'm Steve Rayson. Any questions at all, that's my Twitter handle, that's my email address. Even if it's not about backlinks, do just give me a shout. I'm happy to help at any time, and so is Susan. Susan's just Susan at BuzzSumo as well. So contact us any time if you have any questions. But today we're going to focus on some of our new backlinks features. We think they're quite exciting and quite good, that we add a lot more value to BuzzSumo now than we did even just 3 or 4 weeks ago. So yes, it'll be interesting to get your feedback on how we're doing. So in terms of what we're now doing at BuzzSumo, those of you who've used BuzzSumo for a while will know that we've always shown you the most shared content for any topic or any domain, and you can sort by number of Twitter shares and things like that. What we've now added through a partnership with Majestic, and Majestic, we're really pleased to have the partnership. They've got one of the biggest link databases. Whilst we crawl our own links, they've got a huge database. So we're really pleased to have the partnership with Majestic, because what we can now show you when you do a most shared content search is also the number of linking domains. So if you see on the image here, you'll see the total shares on the right, and just inside, just to the left of it, you'll see the linking domains. Now, just to explain what that is, because not everybody knows, it's really the number of unique domains that link to that article. So it's not the total number of links, because there may be 3 or 4 links from a particular domain to that article. It's the number of unique domains. We think that's probably the most relevant. So you can now see for any piece of content, any article, both the total shares and the number of linking domains to that article. And we think this gives you a much wider perspective in terms of how well content is performing. Shares give you one view, but shares and links give you another view. And I'll just take you through why, really. So the starting point is that shares aren't enough. Shares are fantastic. It's great to get shares on your content. But in terms of your content marketing strategy, shares on their own are not enough. And I can just see lots of examples, and I could share lots of these, but this is a typical example of an article. This happens to be on Inc., but I could choose them from many sites. They've got a lot of shares, 10,000 different shares, but only one link. In fact, I can show you viral quizzes that got 100,000 shares and 0 links. So it's good to get shares. It's good to prompt the awareness, get some people knowing about your content, getting some distribution and amplification. But we also want links. Links are also valuable because there are limitations to shares, and just being upfront about those. Some of the weaknesses of shares is, firstly, most links shared on social are never clicked. I think the latest survey said that something like 56% of links shared on social are actually never clicked. Many people who share don't actually visit and read the articles they're sharing. Now, I'm sure that's not true of any of you listening in here today, but it does happen. People share articles without reading them, and often without even visiting them. And I've found a few examples where there are more shares of an article than actually views of an article. So it does happen. Shares on their own are not enough, and it's primarily because, you know, I say sometimes they're never clicked. They also have a limited shelf life, and so social sharing, as you'll know, if you publish an article, what we tend to find is that shares happen quite quickly. It might be in the first few days or the first week, but then they tend to tail off. Occasionally, when somebody boosts a post or somebody mentions it again, you might get a few more shares, but generally you get a profile which is, in the first week or so, a lot of shares and then gradually declining. And links are very different, really. So just to explain why we think links are important. The first thing is links are an important ranking factor for Google. There's been lots of discussion about it with RankBrain and things. If you're an SEO expert, you'll have seen those discussions. But Eric is a sort of well-known SEO expert, and he published this last week. But he's just saying, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Links still rule for search ranking power. And that seems to be the case, that links still remain an important ranking factor. So you need links to your content. And that's confirmed really by Google themselves. This is Andre Lipatsev, saying that the 2 main factors are the quality of the content itself and the links going to your site. They're the 2 most important ranking factors. So links really do matter, and they're slightly different from shares. Google at the moment saying it doesn't take into account social sharing of content, but it definitely takes into account links from various domains. Now, not all links are the same. Some domains are worth more than others. I won't go into all of that today, but basically you want links from different domains. So What we can now do with BuzzSumo is we can now find the content that gains shares and links. So we can start to look at, okay, what are the articles that get shares and links? And we can also go one step further if we want, of course. We can actually view the backlinks. So if you want to see all the backlinks to a particular article, you can do that as well. So how will you use this practically on a day-to-day basis? And that's what I'm going to talk about for sort of 10, 15 minutes now, is just how you might use BuzzSumo on a practical basis. And the first thing I would say is to start maybe with a site audit. Simply type your domain into BuzzSumo and hit return, and we'll show you your most shared content. But you can now see the linking domains as well. So this is a real search for BuzzSumo, so you can see some of our most shared content. And if you see articles 1 and 3, they're list posts. And the list posts have done quite well in terms of shares. But if you look at the number of links, maybe not quite so well in terms of links. Whereas if we look at articles 4 and 2, you can see they're both how-to posts. And both of those how-to posts have got a lot more links than the list posts. They've got less shares, but they've got a lot more links. So there's an indication that on our side, our audience are more likely to link to a how-to post than a list post, for example. And if we look at the fifth article down, that's a piece of research that we published, and we can see that for us that got 245 links from different domains. That's quite a lot of links. Getting links is really hard, so getting 245 from a single article is really great. So with the tool now, you can start to see what works for you. Now you need to work out what actually works for your site, what works in your topic areas and what works for maybe your competitors and yourself, but you start to see patterns. What I've tried to do is to do some research and see the patterns. I just thought I'd share with you some of the patterns that I'm seeing in terms of the type of content that gets links as well as shares. So it's not just only links, but the sort of content that gets links and shares. So this is research I did over the last month or two, and I found really a number of different types of content. The first was authoritative content that answers questions, and that tends to be a simple, as simple as a what is question, but there are different other questions. Strong opinion posts tend to do very well on links. Content that provides original research also tends to do well. It doesn't have to be content where you've done the research yourself. It could be you're commenting on original research. That tends to do well as well. And then content that leverages a trending topic but also provides practical insights. I'll just give you a few examples of these. So this is some of the most shared content from Content Marketing Institute. You can see they get 5,000 or 6,000 shares. But if we look at the middle one, that's what is content marketing. And we can see it's got a huge number of links. It's got over 2,000 links. It's actually quite a short post. It's quite a simple post. But obviously, because it's from the Content Marketing Institute, it's quite authoritative. So when people are talking about content marketing, they're obviously linking quite often to this particular article. And I think content marketers often neglect the value of some simple question and answer posts, really. There are always new people entering our industry who don't know, what is a backlink, what is shareable content, etc. And so I think there is space, particularly if it's an area where you've got some authority, to use simple answer posts, really, such as what is content marketing. And that's just one example from the Content Marketing Institute, but you can see from the number of links there just how dominant that is, how important that post is to giving authority to their site. And here's another example. These are some of the most shared posts on Harvard Business Review. It's obviously got a huge reach. These are all 28,000 plus shares. But if we look at the answer post here, what is disruptive innovation, we can see it's got a lot more links than shares. It's got 28,000 shares, but it's actually got over 500 links. And even for Harvard Business Review, that's a really big number. I can't stress how difficult it is to get links, really. And often even the New York Times will often have 10 links or 20 links. So it's really not easy to get lots of links. So 500 links, even for the Harvard Business Review, is a great number of links there. Another type of content that does very well in terms of links is research, which I mentioned before. This is an article from Pew Research. Pew Research stand out for me because it's quality research and people link to it a lot. They don't just share it. So this particular article about baby boomers, we can see it's got 8,000 shares, but much more importantly in a way, it's got 1,700 links. So people tend to like linking to research style content, and that's what we found at BuzzSumo. So we can get 200 links to a research post compared to 30 links for a good list style article, for example. And as I say, it doesn't have to be lots of original research of your own. Sometimes it can be you commenting on original research, but possibly before other people. And I'll give you an example from Social Media Examiner. Their content tends to get quite a lot of links because they do a lot of practical how-to content. So you can see the top and bottom ones there, they get quite a few links. But they also do an annual survey about the state of the industry, and they then produce an annual industry report. And if you look at that here, that research, suddenly that's got over 500 links. So it's got similar numbers of shares to some of the other content, but it's got over 500 links, which is great, really. So it's just another example. We tend to find this, even on smaller sites, it might be it's only getting 20, 30 links, but relative to other content that's only getting 2 or 3, research-style posts tend to be linked to. And I think that's because people use them as reference sources when they're writing an article or referring to them, or to back up arguments, for example. So research posts do well. The other type of post that does incredibly well, much better than I anticipated when I did the research, were controversial posts. So a lot of you have probably even seen this post. It's been shared so much, but this was a post by Michael Moore, I think it was about a month or so ago, 5 reasons why Trump will win. Controversial posts get large numbers of shares, but they get equally large numbers of links, and I'll explain a bit why I think that's the case. So if we look at this one, 5 reasons Trump will win is his top post there. It's got a huge number of shares, but actually even bigger number of links, really, because you can see the third article got almost 100,000 shares, but it only got 7 links. He's not getting that many links for his content. But once he's put in a very controversial piece, you can see over 1,000 articles have linked to it. I think that might be because sometimes people link to it to support their political view, or they support a particular view that they have. Sometimes people link to it just to take issue with it, so it's a jumping off point saying why I disagree with Michael Moore, and they'll put the link into the post. But consistently, I've found that controversial or strong opinion posts get a lot of links. So something that surprised me, but I did an analysis of the New York Times of all their content and then their opinion sections, and content in their opinion sections got far more links than content in the rest of the site. So, and I looked at lots of the different sections of the New York Times, and I did the same for The Guardian and other sites, and opinion posts typically get large numbers of links. So it's something for us to think about. And if we look at it in the context of marketing, this is an example I've used before, but this was, I suppose, quite a strong opinion piece. You could argue whether it was controversial. You know, Mark Schaefer did a piece on why content marketing is not sustainable. It's not a sustainable strategy. For Mark, it got a reasonable number of shares, 4,000 shares, but it got a huge number of links. To put it in context, Mark's blog in its entirety has about 1,500 links to it. So almost 2/3 of the links to Mark's blog are actually to this one article. So it just shows how important a particular article can be in terms of gaining you links. And then finally, another type of content that gets links is trending content. And this is one of the best examples I've found, really. This was about Pokemon Go. It was very, very in vogue earlier in the year. It was trending. This article, there were lots of articles about it, and there were lots of articles that got 100,000 shares, but most of them got virtually no links. But this article got over 800 links, and I was trying to understand why, and I think it's because it provides practical insights on how to use Pokemon Go to drive sales if you're a local business. So it's both on a trending topic, but it's also providing practical insights, and I think that's why it got both shares and also a lot of links as well, because people were looking for practical ways to apply a sort of new app or a new tool that was in vogue. So what you can now do with BuzzSumo is you can find the content that gets links and the content that gets links and shares. And what I would say is on BuzzSumo you can always save any article. So do create save lists, and then you can go back to those lists and have a look at them. So I'll just jump out and show you my screen here for the moment. So this is my version of BuzzSumo. I'm on the save content, so anytime I'm on an article I can click the little flag and save it to my lists. And so you can see here I'm doing an article later in the year. I'm aiming to publish it in December on the top viral content of the year. So as I come across new content, I just save it and save it into one of my lists. So here you see I've got 24 articles already, which is what I think is some of the top viral content this year. So these are articles that typically get 1 million or more shares. So do use your saved lists in BuzzSumo. They're a good way. So if you find content that gets shares and links, maybe that's the sort of content that you want to save and refer back to. So do use the saved content options within BuzzSumo. So now you can find content that gets links and shares, and I hope that's helpful. I think it provides a much more rounded perspective as to how well content's performing. Seeing shares is one thing, but seeing shares and links just gives you a more rounded view. Obviously, it's still not the same as actual page views or conversions, which you'll get from your Google Analytics, but you can see this for any topic and any competitor site as well. So it's great to know what content gets links, but what can you actually do to achieve links? And you can do simple backlink outreach, and I wanted to talk about a couple of features on BuzzSumo which just allows you to do this. In my view, the single best way to get new backlinks is simply to find articles that mention you but don't link to you. And then all you've got to do really is just say, thank you for mentioning us. Would you mind putting in a link? It may be easier for your readers if you have a link. And we find that works over 70% of the time if we request a link where someone's mentioned us. So in order to help you do that in BuzzSumo, the first thing you would do is just set up a BuzzSumo alert. I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with BuzzSumo alerts, but just set up an alert for a brand mention. So just go into BuzzSumo, go to monitoring, set up an alert for brand mentions. And then what we would do is every time we find your brand mentioned inside the article of inside the text of an article, we'll send you an alert. So here are some examples here. So literally within 5 or 10 minutes we tend to find content and we can send you an alert for an article that's mentioning you. But if I look at that in a bit more detail, there are a couple of more advanced things that are worth looking at. So here's 2 of my alerts, and just to focus in, we've added 2 really small features, but I think they're really powerful to help you build backlinks. That little link icon tells me that there's already a link back, so that's good. I know that that article has got a link in it, and I know that it's got a domain authority, DA, domain authority of 71. We use Moz domain authority data. Basically, it goes from 0 to 100. The more authoritative a domain, the closer it is to 100. So I can see that that's good. That's got a reasonable domain authority of 71, and it's got a link back to us. However, the one below, you can see that what BuzzSumo tells us is there's no link. So it's mentioned us. I can see it's actually mentioned me as well there. It's mentioned us, but it's got no link, and it's a domain authority of 62. Now, you don't want to spend time chasing every link, although all links matter to a degree, but you might want to chase those with a high domain authority. So on one like this, I know Michael, so the first thing I would do is drop Michael a note to say thanks for mentioning me, etc. Is it possible just to put a link in there? And we find that works reasonably well, because getting links, I say, is so hard. If somebody mentions you and doesn't link to you, that's a really easy opportunity for you to then write to them and try and get that link, which is really important. And what BuzzSumo does here is it just helps you by saying, look, these are articles that are mentioning you, they're not linking to you, and here's the domain authority. So you can decide whether you want to do it. So you could even get a junior person just to go through the list every day and say, okay, could you write to that person and that person to try and get those links? And I'd love to say this was my idea, but actually Syed Balaki from WordPress Beginner, he told me this was how he was using BuzzSumo, and then we built these features to make it easier, because they were literally going through the list and trying to work out which ones had links and which ones didn't, and now we've just made that a little bit easier for you. So backlink outreach is really quite straightforward. Set up your brand monitoring alert, review those with high domain authority but no link, and then write to them to thank them and request a link. And I'd be really keen to see how you get on. Say we're getting over 70% success rates and sometimes higher with that. And then finally, you can use BuzzSumo simply to monitor your success. So you can set up a link alert in BuzzSumo. You don't need to set up an alert just for mentions, but you can set up an alert for links. So you could put in your domain, or you can put in a specific article, and then we'll tell you every time a new piece of content links to that domain or to that article. So we'll alert you to all new links as soon as we find them. As I say, that's typically within 5 or 10 minutes or so of them being published. And then we can give you nice little charts, as you can see on the right here, of how many links you've acquired today. So when I publish this or printed this out earlier today, we'd only had 4 new links today and 106 in the last 7 days, and 484 new links in the last month. But you can also do this for competitors. So it's great to be able to do it for your own site to see how you're doing, but you can also compare how you're doing relative to competitors in terms of gaining links. And you actually even can compare, so you can compare how many links you're getting to them and put them onto the same chart using the compare button there. So hopefully with BuzzSumo you can now see what sort of content gets shares and links. you can see where people are mentioning you, and you can do some backlink outreach. And then, of course, you can always track the number of links you're getting, as you've been able to do. So that's just a quick spin through of some of the new features, particularly the backlink features on our most shared content search. I hope it's been useful. I'm really happy to answer any questions that you've got, either on this or on anything else around BuzzSumo, really. So thank you.
One question from Hannah, I think probably deserves going over, which she asked about the discrepancy in the number of links displayed when you see the total and then when you click within the View Backlinks tab. And just as our subscribers, so you can understand that, the difference is that in the View Backlinks tab, that's a reflection of our index, our internal BuzzSumo index. We have over 2 billion articles and it grows daily. It does emphasize, though, content that has already been socially shared. So when you click on the View Backlinks, that will sometimes be a smaller number than you've seen listed beside the content as linking domains. And the reason is because it's based on our list of links that have been shared. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, that's really helpful, Susan.
Good. Yeah. Another question that a couple of people have had is whether or not there are any plans to make the list sortable by linking domains.
Yeah, it's just a technical issue really on this. We, as Susan said, the number of linking domains figure comes straight from Majestic, so we ping their API and we pull that through for you. The number of the details on the backlinks, as Susan says, comes from our own index, and we only crawl things that have been socially shared, so you won't find things there with no shares particularly. So the way we pull it through is it's not sortable there. If you're an agency customer at BuzzSumo, you can export all the link data that we're now paying Majestic for. So if you're an agency user, you can just use the export tab and you can export all the data into a spreadsheet, and then you can sort by numbers of links, so you can then obviously just resort your spreadsheet as you want. But unfortunately at the moment, just because of the way we pull the data through on the fly, it's not there for us to sort it, whereas the BuzzSumo share data from our database, we can sort that automatically. So it's a slight technical hitch, but at the moment you can't sort within the app by number of links, but if you're an agency customer, you can export all of that data and then play with that to your heart's content within Excel or another sheet.
Thanks, that's really helpful. Let's see. Here's another one from Freddie. With the no link in alerts, are there any plans for you to add in what domain you want it to check?
I'm not sure what that means, but oh, I see what you're saying, because it could be links to other sites. No, there's not. We just pick up whether there are links in it at the moment. If that's the question. I mean, obviously you can specify links to a domain and things like that if you're checking those domain links. But yeah, if there's no link in the alerts, it just simply means there's no link in that article. So you know there's no link back to your domain or to your brand name. Mm-hmm. So if you see no link, there's no link in that article, so you can approach them because there's no link and ask them to add it. I hope that's clear. Yeah, somebody else is saying, I can't see the DA in my account. You should be able to see the DA there. Sometimes we don't have it. If mods don't have, if it's a unique blog or something, or maybe a small blog, it might be that mods don't have domain authority data for it. So there are some where you won't see a domain authority number, but that's simply if it doesn't exist within the mods index. And I know that does happen sometimes when I've seen smaller blog sites and things like that. So you will see some without the domain authority.
Antonia, the other thing that could be affecting that is that if you set a new alert for a new brand, or if you adjust or edit an existing alert, it takes our system 24 hours to populate your feed with the link or no link information. So if you have just set an alert for a brand name, give us 24 hours to get that filtering in place. And if that's not the case, then it's, as Steve said, an issue of the information not being available.
Well, that's the difference between linking domains and external links. Yeah, the difference is linking domains is, it's the number of unique domains that link to your account. So you might have a link to your account from BuzzSumo. I may have written an article and linked to your article. And so it's the number of unique domains, but external links is the total number of external links. So if I'd written a second article on BuzzSumo, and that also links, you would have 2 external links to your article, but actually only from one domain, just from BuzzSumo. So the linking domains is the unique number of domains, not the total number of external links, because you can get far more than one link from a domain. So sometimes, people might have written 4 articles on the Moz blog. They might all link through to BuzzSumo. So that will give us 4 external links, but just one domain link. So I hope that's clear.
I just wanted to say hello to Eileen, who's out there, friend of the program. We appreciate her. And she said that she's using our alerts now and not Google Alerts. So we appreciate that endorsement, Eileen.
Yeah, no, our alerts are it's difficult to say, but our alerts are 1,000,000 times better than Google Alerts. I'm not sure they're not putting much effort into the product or anything, but and the easiest way to check that is just set up a BuzzSumo alert, set up a Google alert, and you'll see that we find a lot more content than you get on the Google Alerts. But yeah, we really like the alerts. I think it's one of the most powerful features which doesn't get used enough really in BuzzSumo. Just ask another question, Susan. Is there a limitation number of domains I can put into one list? I'm not quite sure where you mean the list, but if you're doing a most shared search, you can do buzzsumo.com or mods.com, or so you can put multiple domains into one search. So you don't just have to do one domain. The only limitation is you can only put 1,000 characters into the search box, so that's your only limitation, but you can put multiple domains in there. So if that's the list that you're referring to, on the alerts you get a set number of alerts with the different BuzzSumo plans, but you can do multiple ones. But even in an alert you can do multiples, so you can use the OR operator even within an alert to do this one or that one.
Alerts have a slightly smaller character limit, so if you set up a very long alert using OR operators and then you get the whoops, something went wrong message, it's probably that you've exceeded, I think it's a 225 or 230 character limit there. So just keep that in mind. If you're setting up a really long alert strand, you probably will get an error message if you go over like 225 characters.
Great. Well, I hope that's useful. So it was just a short webinar just to show you some of the new features, give you some ideas on how to use it. Hopefully it's been informative. And as I say, any questions, just reach out to Susan or I. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.